Welcome to the Money Programme. Tonight, after an eventful week, we have stories of money large and small from the city, the shop floor and the racecourse. With the flat racing season beginning on Thursday, we look at the making of a Derby hopeful and at the £500,000 that the horse's owner is prepared to invest in his dreams.
Mr. Tiny Rowland yet again demonstrates his ability to steal thunder and wrong-foot his opponents. As journalists on The Observer demand new legislation to foil Mr. Rowland's schemes, we ask, can Tiny's personal fortunes really sustain the paper? A government rescue for ICL, Britain's major independent computer firm, and a new banking group to rival the Big Four. In Money Week, we've news of these and other stories. And from Wales, a tale of 13 men who are sinking their redundancy money into a workers' cooperative. Could co-ops provide some hope for the unemployed?
Officially, this weekend marks the start of spring, but no doubt Britain's racegoers won't be convinced that spring has really sprung until the flat racing season gets underway this week at Doncaster. The flat, as opposed to the jumps, is where the big racing money really lies, and from now on attention will centre on this season's classic races, the Oaks, the 2,000 guineas and, of course, the prize of them all, the Derby. 18 months ago, the Money Programme embarked on a novel project to follow in detail the raising of a horse that could have a serious chance of winning this summer's Derby. If winning that race is the ultimate ambition of every owner, then just how much money does it really take to feed that ambition? Paul Barry's report begins in the autumn of 1979.
The Houghton sales at Newmarket in October. If you want to buy a Derby winner, this is a good place to start. It's the top sale of thoroughbreds in Europe. Only the cream is here. This sale, 18 months ago, put more than 400 horses under the hammer and grossed £13 million. The average price of a thoroughbred here will be about the cost of an average house, 30,000 guineas. But many of them, because of their breeding, will go for much more than that. This one, in particular, is expected to be one of the stars of the show. He's the first full brother to Grundy, one of Britain's greatest racehorses, winner of the Epsom Derby in 1975. And he's the spitting image of him, the same chestnut coat and the white blaze on his face. But at the moment, he's just lot 336. So will this brother justify the high price he'll undoubtedly fetch? Those who look at him have little to go on. You can't see how fast he is because you can't watch him run. You can take advice from trainers, from bloodstock agents, and you can have him vetted. You can look at his bloodline. But in the end, you have to take it all on trust. You're buying a racing car without looking under the bonnet. It's a gamble, pure and simple.
I'll give you $250,000 now and not take him through the ring.
The Houghton sale is for yearlings, horses that have never seen a racecourse in their short lives. Some will win races, others will flop, some won't even run. To buy them, you need lots of nerve and even more money, especially with lot 336. Because in the next 2 minutes, someone will gamble on his future more money than most people earn in a lifetime.
To the great Grundy, my great nephew, I had a word from Lundy by Warden. A splendid colt here bearing a great resemblance to his brother. Like 100,000 to start. 102.
Only a handful of bidders can stay with this pace, and a duel quickly develops between two wealthy owners. But as the stakes get higher, others, like Sir Freddie Laker, are still waiting on the sidelines, ready to get into the fight.
225, 230, 235, 240, 240 here, against you, 245, 250, 250 here, have another look at him, at 250, perhaps another Grundy. One more, 255. I thought you'd come again. 260. Great opportunity, isn't it? 265. 270. 270 only. You lose him this time. Are you really sure? At 270,000. The Curragh Bloodstock. Thank you, sir.
The man in the peaked cap is David Minton, a bloodstock agent, and he's just set a new European sales record for a yearling, 270,000 guineas on behalf of his client, Jim McCaughey.
270,000 guineas is an awful lot of money. Do you think he's worth it?
He certainly could be. I think Grundy's going to make his mark as a stallion. His progeny have started very well. There's no reason why he shouldn't be a top-class stallion. So therefore, this horse is going to be follow up in his footsteps, hopefully.
You were a little surprised to get him, were you?
A little surprised, but I think Jim was prepared to go on a little bit more and pay a little bit more money for him.
How high were you prepared to go, Jim?
Well, 350, possibly a shade more.
So you got a bargain?
I think we've got a bargain, absolutely. On his looks and conformation, you know, I think he's a dream. He's perfection to me.
Perfection is something Jim McCaughey knows a lot about and can afford to buy. He lives in a beautiful Georgian house near Leamington Spa and commutes round the country by helicopter from the pad he's had built in the front garden. McCaughey is a self-made multi-millionaire. He started life as an electrician and has made his fortune in property development. His swimming pool would do justice to the Olympics. But McCaughey is a modest man who wears his enormous wealth with a casual affability that disguises one of the sharpest business brains around. With VAT and commissions to his agent and the auctioneer, he's just laid out almost £400,000. That he can afford it is not in doubt. But what's the fascination with bloodstock that makes him do it?
My doctor said you ought to have a hobby to relax. I found a horse for £310 from Stowe Fair, a horse called Stubble. Well, I didn't know anything about horses. And the horse ran his heart out. Never won, but gave me a lot of fun. And after that, I started to acquire another horse and another one. Eventually, one ends up with a little family.
Connaught Ranger, winning the Daily Express Triumph Hurdle, was McCaughey's first big winner. But it's just one of a string of successes for the McCaughey colours. In 1979, Mill Reef Stakes at Newbury, one of the top two-year-old flat races. And in 1980, he landed the Tote Ebor at York, one of the season's biggest handicaps.
5/16 clear of New Jerusalem as they come towards the line. Shaftesbury is the winner of the Tote Ebor. Of the season.
McCaughey has put more than £2 million into British racing and picked up some of the biggest prizes as reward. Shaftesbury was trained by Michael Stout, and that's where Centurious is sent.
So there's Michael Stout having a tremendous season, just having a look at the bridle there.
Michael Stout has one of the biggest stables in the country. Here at Newmarket, he trains over 100 horses, which between them in 1980 won enough races to make him one of the top 3 trainers in Britain. So Centurious couldn't be in better hands. 8 months after going through the sale ring, he's beginning to shape up well.
He's now fine down and now looks more like a racehorse than the show horse he was at the time. He's had all the grass together a bit, hasn't he?
Keeping a horse in training at a stable like this won't give you much change out of £6,000 a year. But with Centurious, McCaughey will only get his money back in stud value. So far, he's been broken in and gradually brought to fitness. When a race is finally chosen for him, only then will he be allowed a full gallop.
If you look at the horse, the conformation, the breeding, everything about him, his head, his eyes, and the way he moves, you know, he looks great. The question is, what will he do? What's inside him? I can't tell you that yet.
You're not getting cold feet about the amount of money you've spent on it?
No. Oh, no, far from that, no. I view life as a gamble anyway, and, you know, I think the money is a secondary consideration as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's watching the horse build up and seeing how he improves, and that's what it's all about, the excitement.
Sandown Races, August 1980, and the first big test for Jim McCaughey's Centurious.
2 chances to back up winner with Charles James.
This is where the gamble could come unstuck. But the bookies rate him second favourite, and some of the tipsters actually think he'll win. But for McCaughey, the big question is not whether Centurious will come first, it's whether he'll show any talent at all. Even now, owner and trainer don't know how good he is. Only the race will tell. And if he flops today, it's £400,000 down the drain. There are 2 or 3 very good colts against him. Calaglow from Guy Harwood's stable looks particularly dangerous. An impressive winner first time out, and his stable rates him near classic standard.
Right-ho, this is it. David, the moment of truth.
As they come towards the last furlong, Centurious is looking good, in the lead. Then, as they pass the post, Calaglow pips him, but Centurious is second. And with greater fitness and a bit more experience, he might well have taken the race. He's certainly got some ability, and Jim McCaughey and his wife Pat are naturally thrilled.
Delighted. Pat Edry, very gentle with him. I think he could have won if he'd have used the stick, but he didn't, and I'm grateful for that. I think they'll be a bit cautious taking us on next time out.
But you're not worried he got beaten?
No. He on pounds for that race.
Nice education.
Does he need to win next time out?
Oh, I think he will.
A month later, Centurious runs at Ascot in the Mornington Stakes. And this time he looks superb, even more like his brother Grundy. The bookies think he'll win and make him favourite. And he needs to win today to boost his stud value. Earnings at stud are the only way for horses like Centurious to pay back their huge purchase price. And to be valuable stallions, they must win.
Understated order, and then away. Maktoum breaks well in the centre.
Centurious starts well enough, but this time he has 4 previous winners running against him, all of them well fancied. And as they come up to the stands, he's still boxed in.
Centurious still full of running just in behind the leaders, and bursting through now in between the 6 Mile Bottom and Ganymede, and it's Centurious and Walter Swinburne coming to challenge Bastomi now. Centurious and Bastomi as they race into the closing stages. Bastomi on the near side, Centurious quickening on to the far side, is going to win it another line. Centurious wins it from Bastomi and King's General. That's the 1-2-3.
In the end, it's an easy victory that impresses the critics. And Centurious stamps himself as one of the best 2-year-olds in the country. Jim McCaughey's investment now looks like it might pay off. Good judgment or luck?
My feelings are that you need at least 95% luck to survive. You can study the form, the breeding, everything about the horse, but you can't know what's inside him. No. And therefore you need the luck. I mean, this is obvious because people have paid small money for horses, haven't they? And, you know, they've come good, £4,000 or £5,000, 15, 20,000, and people have paid $250,000, $1 million, and they've had flops. So, unless you have the luck, you can buy forever, if you could stand it, and not get a winner.
But on that basis, are you a lucky man or an unlucky one?
I believe I'm lucky. What the future will bring regarding that particular luck, I don't know, Paul, but at the moment, I think I've been very, very lucky.
Have you come out ahead on all your horses, do you think, in total?
Yes.
Jim McCaughey is worth 30 or 40 million pounds. He's not saying exactly. But he certainly never need work again. He's officially retired once, but work clearly makes the adrenaline flow. He controls a score of private companies that will soon have 300 or 400 million pounds worth of property. Ask McCaughey how he makes his money, and his answer is he's there at the right time. But you don't have to be too clever to realise there's more to it than that.
It's an isolated patch as far as we're concerned. But if you get a realistic figure in the meanwhile, you know, bring it back to me and I'll give you a decision. Right. Morning!
Morning.
He's even made money out of racehorses.
That bridle on, he takes a damn good hold. He's moving really well.
He looks extremely well, doesn't he?
I don't know
in all, he has more than 20 in training on the flat or over the jumps. 8 of them are here with Gavin Pritchard-Gordon at Newmarket. The statistics of flat racing show how difficult it is to make it pay. Only 1 in 4 horses running actually manages to win a race in a season, and only 1 in 5 earns enough for his owner to keep himself in oats. Yet McCaughey's horses have kept him ahead because they've won good prize money, and 1 or 2 of them have been sold at a profit to stand at stud.
Well, hello.
Recently, McCaughey's expanded his racing interests in that direction.
Hello, sweetie. Well, Michael, she looks well. How is she? Any complications?
In January 1980, he laid out £1.5 million for 8 mares and a stud farm in Newbury, Berkshire. Getting into breeding horses is even more expensive than buying them as yearlings. If you breed a Derby winner, then you can hit the jackpot. But things can also go wrong. 2 of McCaughey's mares have just lost their foals. For once, he's not had too much luck. He's now planning to sell the stud, but he'll still go on looking for winners, and his greatest hopes are still tied up with Centurious. October 1980, and the climax of Centurious's 2-year-old career. It's a year to a day since he set that new sales record. It's the Dewhurst Stakes at Newmarket. The winner of this race will be worth £1 million, and he'll be favourite for the 1981 Classics. Michael Stout, the trainer, is quietly confident, but this time Centurious is taking on the best 2-year-olds in Europe. This is the race that Grundy won 6 years before. Can his brother do the same?
And Stormbird shows up in the front rank of this small field. As they run down towards the half-mile point, and Stormbird racing nearest to the stands, Turgori Boo alongside it, Kirtling just behind them on the far side. Then McCaughey and Centurious as they run past the...
Come on, move him up, my boy.
And it's Stormbird from Turgori Boo, then Kirtling, then comes McCaughey, finally Centurious, and as they run down into the bit, there's very little between Stormbird and Turgori Boo. Turgori Boo on the far side. Nothing like it.
Stormbird wins it, and Centurious is last, beaten out of sight. Suddenly, all those hopes appear to be dashed.
What's the future for him, do you think, now?
I've got to talk to Michael Stout, but certainly on that going, he didn't look promising, did he? No. Let's be honest about it. On this heavy going, you know, he just couldn't get through it.
Do you think he's still a possibility for the Classics?
I've got to think hard about that. Not on that performance.
After the failure in the Dewhurst, Centurious was badly off colour, and that's probably the explanation for his disappointing performance. Certainly, Jim and Pat McCaughey and the trainer are now confident that he's all right, and that Centurious will come out this summer a bigger, better horse. They think he's still a live contender for the Derby. But even if he never wins another race, he did win once at Ascot. So what does McCaughey's investment look like now?
Obviously, a horse like Centurious, if you pay whatever one paid for him, there's a salvage value there, obviously. But if he doesn't click...
Salvage value? What's that?
Well, a salvage value is that he has the stallion's pedigree there in the bloodline. I don't think I would lose money. In fact, even now I could sell him at a profit. But if the horse comes good, certainly one would make a lot of money. But I don't view it like that. I haven't bought the horse poor for that reason. I bought the horse to win races. I'm not denying if somebody came along that if he's successful that I wouldn't possibly be tempted to part with part of him. But I'm not in the game for investment purposes.
Jim McCaughey's string of horses should win enough races to keep him happy, and he can afford a number of flops. But he still thinks that his Centurious might win this year's Derby. That would make the horse worth up to £5 million. And if the horse never did win another race, then lucky Jim McCaughey would still have come out ahead.
Centurious, and I gather the bookies are offering 20 to 1 on him for the Derby. Today's main editorial in the Observer newspaper makes strong reading. The unacceptable face of multinationalism, as how it describes the latest manoeuvre in the attempt by Mr. Tiny Rowland, the chief executive of Lonhro, to gain control of the newspaper. On Friday afternoon, Mr. John Biffin, the Secretary of State for Trade, announced that he could not allow Lonhro's purchase of the Observer to go ahead without a reference to the Monopolies Commission. But this announcement looked decidedly lame. because it was preceded a few minutes earlier by another statement by Mr. Rowland. Even Lonhro watchers were astonished. Tiny had decided to alter the whole basis of the deal.
At present, the Observer Limited is 100% owned by a company called Observer International, with its headquarters in Delaware in the United States. This company is itself wholly owned by the oil giant Atlantic Richfield, who bought the Observer 5 years ago. Tiny Rowland's first scheme to buy the paper revolved around Lonhro's subsidiary, George Outram, who published the Glasgow Herald and the Glasgow Evening Times. At first, the intention was for Outram to take control of the Observer from Atlantic Richfield. In exchange, the oil company would receive 40% of Outram's shares. Subsequently, the scheme was changed. Under the revised plan, Atlantic Richfield would have only 20% of Outram and £3 million cash.
All this was done with an eye very much on the Fair Trading Act of 1973, which makes a change in ownership of any newspaper a sensitive matter. The minister is obliged to refer any such purchase to the Monopolies Commission, unless the newspaper is uneconomic or under immediate threat of closure. This does not apply to the Observer, which is presently profitable for the first time in some years. These are the conditions which demand a referral. First, if the purchaser is already a newspaper proprietor. A newspaper proprietor is defined as someone who has 25% control of that company. And second, if the newspaper being taken over has a circulation of more than 500,000. The Observer has 1 million. On these grounds, Mr. Biffin said he could not allow the bid to go through without referring it.
So Mr. Rowland has changed the deal with, it would seem, complete success. Under the new scheme, Observer International continues in business but changes its ownership. Mr. Rowland himself buys a 50% stake in the company, and he and Atlantic Richfield jointly own the Observer. Since Mr. Rowland owns only 20% of the shares of Lonhro and therefore Outram's, it's unlikely that he can be thought of personally as a newspaper proprietor. And anyway, since Observer International is headquartered in the United States and not in this country, even the Department of Trade were forced to admit to us yesterday that the new deal was almost certainly outside this country's legislation.
Charles Raw, Tiny Rowland is a rich man, but his money is mostly tied up in Lonhro shares. Now, where is he going to get the $3 million from that he needs to purchase that 50% in Observer International?
Well, that's the great mystery. Obviously, he could raise it in the short run by borrowing against his Lonhro shareholding. I mean, that's worth a lot of money, about £37 million, I think. But, as you say, it's tied up. It would be very difficult for him to sell the shares.
So what's he up to?
Well, I mean, that's what we will be interested to find out. I mean, anyone in the long run will be watching to see whether it is not, in fact, Lonhro that ends up financing the Observer.
Well, let's look at some of the possibilities. The Observer has a record of unprofitability, although it's making money at the moment. But it's quite likely that it'll go back into unprofitability quite soon. Is he the sort of man who's going to personally fork out for a paper which is losing money?
Well, I think if he's got the personal fortune, yes, because he badly wants it. But as I say, I mean, has he got the personal fortune outside the shares in Lonhro, which I don't believe he can begin to sell? Now, the image that has been put out about him over the years is that he is a man who is devoted 24 hours a day to Lonhro. Now, if he has amassed a fortune outside that shareholding during that time, let us know how.
You've suggested that in the end, of course, Lonhro will probably end up with the paper as a company. Now, I suppose he could do this, couldn't he, by getting Lonhro to purchase the other 50% in Observer International, that's the lot that's owned by Atlantic Richfield, and then possibly sell his 50% to Lonhro as well, and he'd have the working capital to finance the Observer.
Well, I mean, there would be all sorts of devices, I suppose, in some years' time by which the ownership could be transferred, but obviously the immediate way of doing it would be for Lonhro to lend the money to the Observer that the Observer needed, while the shares were owned by Observer International and Rowland personally. I mean, that could happen. He has in the past lent Lonhro money to companies in which he has had a personal interest.
Now, supposing, in fact, that Lonhro does take over Observer International, lock, stock and barrel, is there any way that Mr. Biffin, through company regulations or the Companies Act, could stop that, or stop them from having control on the Observer itself?
I think I'm not an expert in the Act, and I'm not a lawyer, and I but from what one hears, it seems that his advice has won the day. And as things stand, it's very hard to see that could be stopped.
Charles Raw, thank you very much.
Tuesday sees the publication of the latest unemployment figures, and the optimists will be looking for any sign, however meagre, that the most recent monthly trend of something like 100,000 people joining the register will be halted a little. But even if the figures themselves turn out to provide little encouragement, there are some other moves afoot which might. An increasing number of local authorities and trade unions are becoming interested in small worker cooperatives as a means of alleviating the worst effects of unemployment. On the face of it, the circumstances would seem to be propitious. Many skilled workers with redundancy money suddenly find themselves with a significant amount of capital, but still not a large enough sum to fund a small business on their own. John Watkinson reports now on one such venture and the do's and don'ts for co-ops in general.
The dismantling of British industry is nowhere more evident than in Wales. Unemployment stands at 13.5%, 146,000 people out of work. For many in the dole queue, the blow has been cushioned by redundancy pay. Welsh workers received more than £56 million in redundancy money last year. Although a lot was made of the few who got golden handshakes of nearly £20,000, the majority received much less. These card players, all steel workers, who between them put in 70 years' work at Port Talbot, shared out less than £13,000, and that includes pensions for the older men. A lot of that redundancy money is disappearing on spending sprees on such things as houses, cars, holidays, and beer. And there's a good reason for it. If you've got capital of more than £2,000, then you lose your entitlement to supplementary benefit. And in a country where unemployment is endemic, that lifeline to supplementary benefit is considered vital. So it's spend, spend, spend to get below the £2,000 mark. Given the opportunity, many men might prefer to sink their capital into something more constructive. There's the lure of a workers' cooperative. With the right break, they could end up owning and controlling their own business. It may not be the whole solution to the jobs crisis, but Welsh trade unionists claim a fresh approach is needed.
It's time for new ideas, for new initiatives, for innovation, and it's time for greater involvement of people. That's why we're going along this road of cooperation and looking for other ways of curing our problems.
We have set up by the last Labour government the Cooperative Development Agency. Now that's an agency without teeth, without money. The most useful thing that a government could do is to put some real money behind it and let them take some risks to see if we can't more widely show that the benefits of cooperatives can be realised in our manufacturing sector, which has been in such steep decline.
Cooperatives face the same problems as other businesses, so that they do need entrepreneurial and managerial skills, like other businesses. They do need a saleable product, and allied to that, they need a market which is buoyant. At the moment, markets are in recession. I don't see why cooperatives should be a miracle cure for recession.
As a seaside town, Aberystwyth has faded gently but gracefully. Today, more work is provided by the public purse than by holidaymakers. Boarding houses have become student hostels for the university. The hospital, local government and the civil service provide the lion's share of employment. But now, those public sector jobs are gently ebbing away. In December, the only manufacturing plant of any size in Aberystwyth closed. The Midland-based Brockhouse Engineering shut down their Welsh outpost. 13 employees decided to fight back by forming a cooperative, Aberystwyth Engineering. They've taken over the lease of the Brockhouse factory and are buying up some of the plant. Although cheap, the machinery will swallow up the men's £6,000 redundancy money and savings. Since December, they've been trying to raise extra capital. They're hopeful of grants and loans of up to £60,000, but so far, nothing definite has materialised.
if we don't try and do something to help ourselves down here, we're just not going to get any work, because the unemployment figures are very high for this area. There's no chance of any of us getting any work, so we've got to try and help ourselves.
Britain's most public cooperative efforts have had a troubled history. The Scottish Daily News was one of 3 enterprises born during 1974, the industrial co-op's finest hour, with Tony Benn at the Department of Industry. It lasted less than 2 years. And KME, the engineering co-op at Kirby near Liverpool, struggled on until its demise in 1979. Of them all, only Meriden, home of the Triumph motorcycle, survives, but only just. £10 million of taxpayers' money in grants and loans has been poured into the Midlands factory. In spite of this, the workforce has been cut in half. But there have been some tangible results.
Productivity is so much higher now, probably as much as 40% higher than it was under the previous private sector management. Will give you some idea as to what can be achieved, and indeed what had to be achieved if we were to have overcome all those really quite formidable obstacles that come our way.
But it was not to Meriden and the British experience that the Welsh TUC turned to find a blueprint for cooperative success. Instead, they travelled to Mondragon in the Basque region of Spain. They came to see 84 workers' cooperatives. The first co-op was started by 5 men 25 years ago. Today, they are owned by and provide a living for nearly 20,000 people and dominate the market in electrical goods. Worker commitment is guaranteed by a down payment of up to £2,000. Management is hired by and is answerable to the workers. Mondragon flourished in the boom of the 60s. The key to its success has been the Caja Laboral Popular, a cooperative bank and resource centre. Originally funded by workers' savings, it now has assets of almost £300 million, and thus the expertise and finance to back and vet new enterprises. It was just such a resource centre that the Welsh TUC determined to set up in embryonic form on its return to Wales.
So what we intend to do, if we can, is to have the resource centre, have it properly staffed, have some centralised services like the ability to buy computer time to help small cooperatives, accountancy advice being readily available, legal advice being readily available. Industrial relations and industrial law advice will be available from us in the Wales TUC. So all of these services, the major obstacles that people meet in a highly complex society where they are workers by hand in the main, where they have to have some kind of input of this kind to assist them in managing a small business, will be available from the resource centre.
You're arguing for a change of role. You're arguing that the TUC should almost become entrepreneurs so far as these co-ops are concerned.
There's nothing wrong in that. If the TUC can do the job better than the employers at the moment or the government have done, and my God, they could not have done worse, then so be it, so we should welcome it.
You know, we've got to convince them, you see. That
Although the co-op members of Aberystwyth Engineering are getting encouragement and some professional advice from the Welsh TUC, ultimately it's they who now have to take the decisions about the co-op's future. For Tom Jones, it means saving the machine skills he went to Llanelli to learn. For 50-year-old Bill Morgan, the co-op could be his last chance of work in the Aberystwyth area. All the workers looked to Gwyn Jenkins for inspiration and leadership. As former shop steward, he got closest to management. But it's not the wages battle he's now got to lead, it's the entrepreneurial search for new products. And in that search, they have to consider anything. Gordon Salmon, a ski technician, has invented a contracting ski stick. He has used all his money in developing the prototype. Now, he needs a manufacturer with some capital to mass-produce the ski sticks and a host of allied goods.
Also, items like gun cleaning equipment, which will sell well over 1 million in the United States. They're not guns here, but every home has a gun. There's magnificent fishing tackle, which can be attached to this gear. And I've made several of these, and the fishermen think they're absolutely fantastic. And therefore we have...
The workers are confident they can engineer the parts, but there are still questions about finance and the markets for the products. While his colleagues consider ski sticks, another member of the co-op, the former works inspector John Armitage, now director of marketing and sales, mans a stand at the Southwest Engineering Exhibition in Bristol. To get here, John has dipped into his own pocket, and the deadline for finding work is fast approaching.
We've met a lot of nice people here who we feel could, in the future, help us considerably. But a lot of it tends to be long-term, that we can't see it forthcoming in the next couple of months, which is when we need it, of course.
The exhibition bristles with stands showing off the latest multi-million-pound high-technology equipment. Small fry like Aberystwyth Engineering can't compete directly against this, but there could be some spin-off work from the big boys.
If, for instance, we were fortunate enough to get the Datsun car investment here, a whole host of small companies would grow around it, and we would hope that some of those would become co-ops. A whole host of small companies could grow just supplying the stores in Wales. A whole host of companies could grow, you know, around the other industries that we have and the other investments that are likely to take place.
I'm worried about the danger of going overboard about cooperatives. Some people seem to be picking them up as though they're a miracle cure, and this is patently not the case. They have the same problems to face, same marketing problems to face as ordinary enterprises.
Well, what happens if you fail?
Well, if we fail, it means that, well, I can see that most of us will be condemned to the rest of our working life on the dole, because there's just nothing here. There's no one going to come into the area. So we just got to try and help ourselves. And this is what we are trying to do.
John Watkinson reporting. And so after a week which has been particularly full of financial news, we turn now to the broadcast computer for our regular weekly review of Money Week.
A government rescue for Britain's only major computer firm, ICL. The company will get £200 million in loan guarantees for 2 years, on top of another £70 million already promised by the banks. The crisis has been brought on by stagnating sales of ICL's big computer systems and a failure to take full advantage of the lucrative home computers market. Hand in hand with the new money, major changes in ICL's management are predicted.
Nor do BL's yearly figures offer any comfort to the government. Losses were even bigger than expected, moving from £144 million to more than £535 million in 1 year. BL's chairman, Sir Michael Edwards, says the company is moving out of the trough, clearly pinning his hopes on the Metro, which has now captured nearly 1/10 of the UK car market.
BL's problems are shared by other manufacturers, as figures for industrial production show. Manufacturing output continued to fall in January, with activity 15% below last year's level. Our slump is now more severe than any other developed Western economy.
Britain had another big trade surplus last month, following January's abnormally high figure. But February saw the surplus go down to £614 million. The bad news is that manufactured exports are declining while oil and invisibles grow.
But in the city, shares were buoyant, and the all-share index moved up steadily. Despite the dire results from BL and GKN, the FT30 share index passed the 500 mark. Buying was spurred on by hopes of a further drop in interest rates and news that inflation is slowing down.
Indeed, the retail price index published on Friday showed that the annual rate of inflation has continued its decline from the peak of May last year. It now stands at 12.5%. But prices are expected to rise next month because of rate increases and the effects of higher excise duties in the budget.
And the pound had another strong week on the money market. It was up nearly 4 cents against a weakened dollar. Against other major currencies, it had a more varied experience, but rose particularly against the yen, following a cut in Japanese interest rates.
Finally, Britain now has the Big Five instead of the Big Four banks, following this week's merger of Standard Chartered and the Royal Bank of Scotland. It's the biggest shake-up in British banking since the mergers of the 1960s, and the new group has a capital worth around £900 million. And that's all from the Money programme tonight. Next Sunday we'll be back at our usual time of 6:40. Please join us then. Good night.